this is going to be our next project. It's an International with the DT466. So we need to adjust the brakes on it, adjust the clutch, look at the air conditioning on it. The person who owns this truck just bought it. It's got an AC compressor, but AC is not working, so we need to figure out what's going on with it. That's still R12. It's not been converted to 134A. So we're probably going to do a 134A conversion to it. But first we need to see if there's actually a charge in the system, so I'll have to go find the R12 gauges. He wants to see about getting the pump turned up on it. And then we have some issues with the turn signals. I also don't know if I said this, but it needs a clutch adjustment. Right, that's all the free travel. I mean, we're already hitting the clutch right there. So we need to put some more free travel back in that pedal. It's a little too tight. So we're gonna start with the clutch adjustment first, because if it adjusts it and we find out that it needs a clutch, that's gonna be the most expensive part of this, and the customer's gonna wanna know that to start with. This is the rod that goes between the clutch linkages. So took it out of the truck, brought it in here to make the adjustment to it. We added about a 1/2 inch length to it. There's only about 1 inch of threads left, and I didn't feel comfortable with less than a 1/2 inch bite. So we're gonna put this back in the truck and see how it works now. All right, so now we're gonna take it for a drive and see how that clutch adjustment is. I have more travel in the pedal before it even starts to take up, so that's better. We'll see how it drives now. Next up, we're gonna adjust the pump. So I've got some tools laid out here. This is almost everything you need to adjust a DT's pump. So, under this plug is your fueling control. Here's access to your star wheel. And then on the back here, you can actually, under the safety wire, access the preload for the star wheel. So what we're gonna do is give it a little more fuel with that front plug. Once we take that out, then we're gonna go to the back plug and adjust the star wheel a little bit. Then go take it for a test drive. You don't want to be overly aggressive with your pump adjustments, and you need to run the throttle by hand before you put that front plug back in, because when you back that screw out, it can contact the housing. So you want to make sure you don't back it out far enough that it hangs the RPMs, because it will stick the pump there. So we're not going to go that crazy with the adjustment on this truck. We're just going to try to give it a little bit more power while we're here. All right, so I've got my plugs off here. If you look right there, that is our fuel control. Right there is our star wheel. That's going to set the off boost fueling. So I've already made my adjustments, and what you want to watch for is when we go to move that it moves freely and returns. So we're good there. So how you do that adjustment is take a ratchet with 3/8 socket, you break it loose, take the socket off, put the socket back down on there, take your screwdriver through the center of the socket while you're holding it, and then you just thread it out. You're better off going slow with your adjustments and incrementally adding to it. I went about 1.5 turns, and I'm going to adjust the star wheel. Now the star wheel, you can adjust the preload on the back, but we're not going to be touching that today. We're not going that crazy with this pump adjustment. We're just going to give it a little more, and then we're going to add some off boost fueling to it. So to add fuel off boost, star wheel needs to come forward. To remove fuel off boost, move it back. Now that will also affect a little bit of the smoke until it lights the turbo. So you don't want to go crazy on this, because that will raise EGTs. So we're going to bring that star wheel just a little bit forward, but not very far. So with our pump adjustment here, we've got the intake tube off, and we have to be ready just in case that pump adjustment's too much and it tries to run and run away, that we can shut it down. So we have our snap off 0HSH1T master engine shutdown kit ready. Chris is going to fire it up. Yep. And just in case it tries to run away, we always keep this ready. On the seat, you're probably sitting on it. Doesn't look bad on off throttle or off boost fueling there. So one thing we noticed while we were up on top of the engine there is this is the plug for the end of the fuel rail for the return lines. Just wide open. It's bubbling fuel out as it runs, so that should also help a little bit once we get the return line capped back off. So the last thing to figure out on this truck is going to be why the speedometer does not work. So this is the speedometer drive and gearbox. Mounts right up here to the transmission. So this pin comes out. If you look, this is going to be our problem. It's broken. This O-ring's messed up too. But there should be a tooth that sticks out of this piece right here, and it's not there. It's broke off. So that will be why this thing does not have a working speedometer. So I'm going to go ahead and put the speedometer drive back on the trans, just so that it's not open and getting dirt in there. I'm going to go see if we can go source one of these pins now. So yeah, really bad drawing here, but I've gotten all my important measurements and pretty much every measurement I can realistically take off this. The only thing I don't know is how far out this tab is supposed to stick. But I'm hoping between its overall height measurement, the square stock, the diameter of the round, and the diameter of the collar here in the center, that we can hopefully match this up to another one. So we started on the AC on the dump truck today. We've got the R134A conversion in there, and I've started putting some refrigerant in, but we are not getting any cycling out of the system. So I took apart the dash here, and I found the pressure switch. So the way this should be working on the system is we should be getting power in to one of these two lines. Pressure switch is making and breaking the contact based off of the pressure presets that switch is made for. Then the other wire should be continuing out to the compressor clutch. Pretty simple system, but we're not getting power on either of those wires. So what we're going to go do now is I'm going to get a set of jump leads. I'm going to connect to the wire at the compressor, measure resistance back, and figure out which one of these two leads is coming from the compressor. So once we figure that out, I'll know which side is supposed to be my power input side. Then we can see if we put power to the input side manually, if the system starts to cycle. Now, we know there are problems with this HVAC system. So right here is all the controls for the HVAC, except it's not, because the blower motor power runs off that switch. Now, this customer just purchased this truck to add it to their fleet. They wanted a cheap single axle dump truck, and it's got some problems. Obviously, when you buy a cheap piece of equipment, you're going to have to fix some stuff, and that's kind of where we're at right now with it. So we need to see if there's something wrong with the control head here that's not sending power to the circuit, which is it's pretty possible. So then we'll have to decide with the customer then, do we want to put power to trigger the AC on a toggle? Do we want to try to find a new control head, which we could fix this stuff if the wiring hasn't been so hacked up that we can put it back together? There's a lot of options here, but we'll have to figure it out as we go. First off, I need to figure out which wire is my input power, and then I'm going to run power to it with a fused power source and see if the compressor cycles then. Once we make sure that the compressor is capable of working, that the system can work, that there's no giant leaks in it, once we get some pressure on it, then we'll move forward, because there's no sense fixing it if all that stuff is bad too and we have to do more work. And I don't know exactly what the budget's going to be on this, because I have to call with a quote before we can move further after we figure out what's going on with this. So we've gone through the rest of the diagnosis on this AC system here, and at this point we're not going to be moving forward until we get some approvals. So, starting with our problems, first off, this is not acceptable wiring. I mean, if you look at the gauge jump from the wire feeding the blower motor to the wire that they've got wired to feed it, this is just a fancy little electric cab heater now. It does get screaming freaking hot when the blower motor's going, so that's not good. So, I mean, this wiring, there's a crappy inline glass fuse, thin gauge wiring. I mean, this is not good for what we would want to see. We'd want to rewire that with some heavier gauge wire, use a relay with a fused source feeding the relay. It's not good. Next problem, that pressure switch is bad. It does not trip at all. So we have converted the system to 134A, and I have an initial charge in it this morning. enough that we should be getting that pressure switch to trip. It's not. So we know it needs a pressure switch. But we wanted to make sure that the AC compressor clutch is capable of working and the rest of the system could work without the pressure switch. Now we do have a set of service gauges on there, so what we were going to do, or what we did, is I had Chris stand outside and watch the compressor clutch and the service gauges that are on there, while I connected these two back together, so by basically bypassing the pressure switch. So I should have had compressor clutch engaged. It does not engage, and it is burned up. It does not work. We are getting power to it. It does not engage. So it needs a compressor clutch, which at this point would probably be better just to put an entire compressor on it. It needs a pressure switch. We need to rewire the blower motor and all that stuff in here. And ideally we'd want to see new control head go in that actually works. But being an 86 International, I don't know if there's reman or new options for that, or if we have to buy a used one and try to run that. So with all of this, we're going to get an estimate together the best we can of what it would cost to fix everything here and send it off to the customer and see how much of a priority having AC in this truck is to him. So that's going to do it for the dump truck here. While it was here, we went ahead and adjusted the brakes, the clutch, and the injection pump. We replaced the flasher relay. It had LED ones, was going really slow. There are no LED lights in this truck. We checked out the AC. We ordered the parts to fix the speedometer. It's got that broken pin coming into the transmission, or out of the transmission, into the adapter in line that converts the speed for the speedometer cable. We found a couple other things wrong with it. The AC is not going to be able to be fixed right now. The customer's going to have to make a decision how much money he wants to put into that particular project. But it's a lot closer than it was.